when we're locked into the trauma of our money relationships that started when we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those beginning years before we really knew everything or even knew how we had control. We were conditioned by our surroundings and how we talk about our money or how what money is to us and what does it mean. Money's hard to come by. Does that feel true or false?
Taking a minute to be myself, don't need no help. We keep on rising.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I'm Connie Davis. I'm your host of Unlocking Commerce and Business. Today is going to be a really special conversation. I can already feel it. Grace and I have had a couple of misstarts, so we're here. Finally, we made it back together. And as my guest today, Grace, I'm really excited that we're not here just talking about money. The last few episodes for the listeners have really been around economics and cash flow. And we've been talking about the true meaning of commerce. And this is leading into season 2. This is about finding our voices. And I love that you're here to help us transform our relationship with money today. And I know that you are a holistic financial strategist. I just read that you are a certified sound healer. So I know we were talking about the work that you do out in the community to spread a beautiful music and vibration through music that way. So I want to learn a little bit more about that. And then I know that you've been doing almost 2 decades, going on 3 decades of work with your Saving Grace money method. And so we want to hear about that today and all of the things that you do to really integrate this energetic healing work, which is really near and dear to my heart and body. It's so good for our bodies and our minds. With your intuitive kind of self worth practices around the relationship we have with money. So, welcome to the show, Grace.
Thank you so much for having me on, Connie. I appreciate it. Yeah, I love getting out and teaching people and sharing with everyone that I meet about the power of yourself and how much you can create magic in your life, and manifest money through your relationship with money. And what does that mean in terms of the work that I do? Uh, and so I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. What part of the world are you calling in from? Or
Uh,
dial?
right. Yeah. Currently, right now, I'm calling in from Virginia, Partlow, Virginia, near Lake Anna.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm here in Tampa Bay, so we kind of host the show out of St. Petersburg here, which is the Skyway Bridge behind me, guys. It's one of my favorite roads to travel. And the reason I bring that up is because I look at bridging as such a beautiful metaphor for the way that we need to navigate ourselves through our own life.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of my branding is around water. And you just mentioned Lake Wales. So I'm like sitting here going, there's water around us, and water carries energy and vibration and all of this amazing ways of kind of molding and shaping as it moves through the world. And so I want to use that metaphor with the audience today, wherever we can, to talk about this intuitive self-worth practice that you kind of help people break through, getting themselves unstuck.
Yeah.
And let's first talk about why or what is money trauma to you, and how does it show up in people's life on a daily basis so that they need your saving grace method?
Right. So what happens is that our origin of where we first have the beginnings of our relationship with money starts in childhood and we are conditioned by our surroundings. Interesting enough, when you talk about water, talk taking back to your water conversation, we are 70% water. So we vibrate just like the water vibrates, and so that's the same thing with the sound bowls. It carries a certain frequency in the vibration, and when we're locked into the trauma of our money relationships that started when we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those beginning years before we really knew everything or even knew how we had control. We were conditioned by our surroundings and how we talk about our money or how what money is to us and what does it mean. So if I say to you, money's hard to come by, does that feel true or false?
I think it depends on the scenario. It depends on who I'm interacting with for that compensation, and we can get into that, but that's how I would answer because of my unique journey. But I think some people have absolutely like a rule, they've got a history or a buildup of experiences that have created this belief system inside of them.
Yeah. For example, my father believed you had to, put your he would say, put your nose to the grindstone and just push and just work harder. And he is no longer with us, and I love him dearly. Um, but he was a great example of literally working himself to death. His body broke down from the work that he did and eventually caused him to expire. And it's not that it was just that was his experience through his life, is that you had to work hard and you had to sacrifice for the compensation, which is part of his money story and part of my money story, because that's the thing that I started with, like, oh, I have to work 80 hours a week. My mother showed me, my father showed me, like, you have to work. And therefore it it allows you to breathe into and to live that idea of, if I work hard for the money, then I'll deserve it. And if it comes easily, and I've noticed this, when things come easily to me, often I will sabotage it. I will lose it. I will suddenly get a bill out of the blue. I will and it'll just evaporate. Um, and so when I have 30 years of experience in the finance industry, owning I own an accounting department, a whole accounting company, and we work as a back end accounting department for many, many companies. So I have a lot of, strategic abilities in the nuts and bolts of money and how money is made. But in my observation over the 30 years working with different business owners, hundreds of different business owners, people in the same industry, for example, there are two people in the industry of Pilates studios, right? Pilates studios are a wonderful place, and both were doing well when the economy was well. But when the economy went down, one studio thrived and continued growing and is still viable today. And she's one of my longest clients since 1994. And the other one went out of business. And the difference is one kept looking for answers. She got curious. She was always about like, how do we make this grow? How do we make this grow? And so she diversified her way of growing. So even during COVID, when other studios started shutting down, she had, before COVID hit, she had already started doing the videos online and slowly growing that, so that when it really hit hard and everybody was like confounded and
She was
quarantined
ready.
to their home, she was still able to like use her studio and teach. So it's like, it's learning how to like identify your trauma with money, your relationship with money. It's not even trauma necessarily. It could be just your relationship with money and what innately comes up, like, money doesn't grow on trees, like those sayings. What sayings are you naturally saying all the time that you're not even conscious of? Like, I can't afford that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what your frequency is at the current state. Doesn't mean you can't change it, and doesn't mean you need to go into a victim story about, oh, I've got a bad relationship with money. It's just noticing it and then being able to go, okay, I want to shift out of that into being someone who money easily flows to effortlessly, like how to shift that.
You mentioned the word relationship with money, and I've been really diving into the root of words lately. And I love that when we think about the relationship with money, it's how we're relating to it. How we relate to it is the same way that we relate to people, and people feel kind of our vibe the moment we approach them. So why can't we think about money the same way? Money's a tool. We're relating to a tool. And, if you think about a tool, what's the first type of tool that comes to your mind?
Because I'm gardening. When I'm gardening, I'm thinking like I think of like the spade and the rake and the I forget
Yeah.
the yeah, I guess it is a spade, the thing
A
that
little
it's
digger
like
thing?
the little shovel. That's
Yeah.
yeah, giving away like I'm learning. I'm a beginning gardener.
Oh, I love it. I used to garden all the time too, but see, that's a perfect example because you're trying to nurture the soil. You're trying to put something into the ground and seed it, or whether you're starting a little baby plant, but you're using tools to help you get there, and money is a tool. And on the last episode, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we relate to money as if it's the thing that is going to help us get where we're trying to go. But what I love about the example of your client in the middle of COVID is she took it into her essence and what she was passionate about and kept that connection going with her clients, with the market that was around her. And in the episode I did with Paul, who wrote about the capital offense, he talked about let's talk about money as capital because it's capital that we are actually moving around from previously invested um, activities and uses of time. And so she was just an example of how she was like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, just going to deliver it a different way. So, what do you think about the word relationship with money? If we get to the root of the word, how we're relating to money, it really matters then. That's what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
a vibration.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry about
there you go. Um, Back to your question, how you relate to money is so fascinating because think about it. Right now, as your listeners are listening, when they, think about it as you're, listening to this. What when you think about money, what is it that you love about money? Do you love something about money? What it provides? Do you ignore money? Like, I have a lot of clients who ignore their bank account, looking at their bank account, looking at the numbers, looking at what it is, and they are ignoring that part of it. And then it becomes obvious to an outside observer when you ignore that relationship. What happens when you ignore a relationship? It declines. So it's easy to see, well, then I can see where the money's going now because I've not been paying attention. Um, it also, like, helps to, like, start like, when you relate to this energy, because money is really just energy, where it is a commerce, it is a capital, it's moving energy from your focus from one thing to the next. Um, it's it is tangible in a physical way, but it's also, like, a non-tangible thing because money can also equate to time and energy.
it's current, right? It's a
Yeah.
currency. A currency aligns with energy because there's a current running through our house with our electrical wires, running through our nervous system with electrical charge, and it's a currency. And that's what we call it. I mean, the other name for money is currency.
Right, absolutely, and you're right. That's exactly how it equates to each other in terms of the money relationship and energy that we put forth into the process of how we manage our money or not.
Yeah. So let's think about this. So tell us a little about your saving grace method, because I love that. I actually named the episode today Saving Grace and Unlocking the Flow of Commerce, right? And the flow of commerce is really how water moves. And if we think about the value, exchanging value is the meaning of commerce in a marketplace.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about the way that money can move through a marketplace. What is the saving grace method and how does that help your clients unlock that flow for themselves?
I found that there's a combination of relating relating the your mindset, the energy, and the relationship of money with also the strategy of the nuts and bolts. Because if we just did the nuts and bolts, which I have done, it's harder.
Yes.
It's more arduous, it's more worrisome, it creates the journey becomes longer, and depending on your attitude towards it, you can spiral down depending on what story you're running in the background. And story being, for example, early on in my life, in my 20s, I was in a situation where I was just starting my business and was attracting clients that didn't like, because I was running that story of you have to work hard for your money. So what did I do? I attracted clients that didn't pay me. I would do the work and then they would, for whatever reason, they would be like, "Oh, I can't pay you right now." And so there was another story that was going on that, there was a situation where a family member didn't pay, they borrowed money from me and didn't pay me back. And then when I asked for the money back, they gaslit me or gaslight me into like being like, you're being selfish with your money. You should, you don't deserve it. This other person deserves it more even though it's yours, right? So you don't realize as like a little 8-year-old that you carry that story forward. So how did that reflect in my life going forward? As I, without even thinking, because this is before I started doing the work, is that I created attracting clients that paid, that would initially start to pay me, but then like when it came time to like you do all this work for them and then they're like, I don't have the money. And I'm like, I'm looking at your bank account. I see you have the money to pay me, and yet you don't, you're choosing not to pay me. And then you give me a victim story about what it is. And of course, with my background story, I'm going to say, oh, you're right. I don't deserve it. You deserve it more. I'll wait. And then I'll just go and scramble and try to figure out how to pay my bills. And that story kind of repeated itself until I could learn how to be more observant and say, okay, no, I need to get paid. If I do the work, I get paid. And then I was like, I'm going to get paid up front because I know I'm going to do the work. I don't know if you're going to pay. And so it starts changing the relationship to what it is and your story. I'm giving my example to help your listeners understand why your story matters in relationship to money, because you are running a program unconsciously. Um, and that's informing how you create your pricing, how you relate to your customers, how you either get money or don't get money. Because there's people that I was like, there were clients had no issue getting money, getting paid. They would be like, hey, your event's coming up. I need to get payment today. Picked up the phone, got the money, no problem getting money in. I was like, well, that's a different experience than me. And, when I looked at her history, I was like, she comes from a wealthy family. Money was never an issue for her. It was always abundant. She didn't have any qualms asking people for money because she didn't have any story with it. In that sense, she had other stories, but not
And
that story, you know?
And that actually, so I'll share a little bit about my story just to maybe have you kind of show the audience how you kind of help us break that down is, so I come from a very low income family. My dad worked hard. He was probably of that same generation. And, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so, but I came to terms with my money story a long time ago that I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how money moved, and it wasn't until I got into, really into the banking industry, 30 years ago, that I started watching it move, and I started watching it move when there were certain activities happening.
Hmm.
I didn't grow up with, what we call now economic literacy or financial literacy. There was just, you go to work, you get paid, you pay your bills. It was pretty simple back then. And I don't know that our parents really had the language to be able to explain money is a currency. Money is a energy. It's a tool. We didn't talk about it back then that way. It was a tool that you use, but it was kind of expected
Hmm.
and you got what you got, right?
Hmm.
You get what you get. And so the get what you get though is really where my story kind of was like, oh, okay, I'm okay getting that salary or I'm okay getting that compensation and I'm okay. So I settled a lot. I settled in my early job because I had the experiences. I worked my way through my career. I did not go to like I didn't get a fancy degree. And that was my settling was I
Mhm.
thought was all that I was worth. And so I think that's where, for me, the transformation for individuals comes when you realize that regardless of your credentials, regardless of where you come from, you have inherent worth and you have an inherent way that we build trust with individuals or we form a relationship based on that trust. And that trust is how quickly do we build trust? Do we just jump in and, like your client goes, that's my money and I'm actually okay asking for it because I've done the work or I'm going to do the work? Versus I'm more timid and shy and I just kind of settle. And so, what do you think when you hear something like that, as far as that I've got to build the trust and there's a self-worth challenge where it's you got to find your voice, you got to find your value. And that's what this platform has been amazing for me to really find my voice and to help unlock things that, same stories that other individuals go through. There's a lot of people like that out there though.
Yeah, I mean, we all are because commerce, money is a root thing that we all have to interact with
It
all
is.
every day we are interacting with it. So we are in deep relationship, whether we are consciously in relationship with it or not. Um, it is there prevalent in our lives every single day. Um, and I think, just like with your story, like you're conscious of it now. So it makes it easier to go, okay, I'm not settling anymore. I'm going to actually make active choices and also check when I fall back. Because, we can find the story, we can realize the story, and then we can make a declaration that we're going to change. And we do. That's not to say that we're not going to fall back into old habits because old habits feel comfortable. Not going to, it's not that we're not going to resonate with a client that's not going to be a healthy relationship. We may attract a client that's not a perfect match again, because we've fallen back into that story. Um, so it's a constant practice of being clear of like, what is it that I'm projecting out there? What is it that I'm actually vibrating inside myself? And where do I practice being more loving to myself, realizing I am worth it, whether it's, uh, because like the smallest things create ripples in your life. Taking the time to just meditate in the morning or go for a morning walk is giving yourself the presence, giving yourself the love and the space to be worthy. And it's actually allowing your nervous system to relax and feel safe. And when you feel safe, you receive. When you're like scared and feeling scarcity, you're out there grabbing like this. I need to go get this and I need to go that and I need to, and therefore you're not able to actually connect with people because when you're at like a networking event and you're in the I'm desperate mode, you're like, look at me, look at me, look at me, please, please buy my stuff. And it repels people. And the people that it doesn't repel, those people are probably going to it's going to be a bad match. And you're going to be like, oh, it's going to cost me more money to
Yeah,
interact with this person or
it does.
time or energy, you know?
It does. And I love that you brought up it takes work because relationships take work. We think about, I have to intentionally invest my time, energy, and focus into another person. Could be my significant other, it could be my child, it could be my parents. That's a relationship. And what you're saying is not to avoid money. Don't not look at it, as a lot of people like, "Oh, I don't wanna see the numbers, and the numbers are going down instead of up." And, when I talk to kids, I talk to a lot of youth, that are interested in entrepreneurship, and they understand it's gonna take a lot of work, right? It's gonna be a lot of time. I'm gonna sacrifice time with my friends, and I recently helped out at a local high school, and this is where the economic empowerment comes in because economics means we're moving capital through our economy. We're moving a capital from one person to another, and we're creating things that our capital. We have to produce things in order to collect and receive. And so I think that that's a lost art of teaching. And I want to go back to something you said, because you said you have to make it a lot more about the energy of learning how to manage this relationship rather than just the nuts and the bolts, meaning probably budgeting. Is that what you mean? Like, don't just focus on learning about what it means to save and how to keep a budget, but learning it on a more holistic level?
Yeah. Yeah, because just like I use the analogy of comparing it to losing weight and to nutrition because there's like there's a school adage of like, oh, it's just monitoring the calories in, calories out. Like it could be pragmatic, and you can be pragmatic with your numbers. And like, oh, it's just the income coming in and it's the expenses going out, and it takes out the humanness of you
Yes,
and what's going on for you. You cannot control, for example, one of the biggest challenges for people in the United States is healthcare. And if you get sick, God forbid, and you didn't have enough insurance to cover you and you're out of work. Well, if you're out of work and you had to pay for that and you're self-employed and you're the business owner and you can't work because of your illness, well, then you're not going to be able to pay your insurance and your insurance is going to lapse. Then you can't afford the all the treatments that you're going to need to go through, whatever illnesses that you're fighting. And it collectively like makes it compound in that way to a point where, you know, it defaults into like a spiral of losing stuff. And that's where it's like you don't the nuts and bolts of it, the pragmatic of it doesn't take into account there's other things that are outside of that. It
that's
doesn't
right.
take into account like your child gets sick and you can't work that week. It doesn't take into, like so it it's where okay, we have to look at in a bigger picture what's really going on and start to look at what how much do I really need to exist? What's going on around me? And how can I take what's going on around me, not fall into fear about, oh my God, the gas prices are rising. Therefore, the food prices are going to rise. And therefore, it's going to cost me more at the grocery store. It's going to cost me more to like drive to work. It's going to, and then I'm not going to get a raise for another year. So I'm going to have to work on a smaller budget and then get into that fear as you're rising with it versus going, okay, I can't change the fact that the gas prices are going up. I can't change the fact that the grocery prices are going up. What can I control in my if I have a set income? Can I start making adjustments that feel and will support the family? Are there are there fun activities that I can create where we're spending more time at home so that we can offset the cost of living? Can we start looking at fun ways to start canning and preparing so that we have food in our pantry in case the prices get too high and we have to live on beans and rice? If that was the case, then okay, I can do that. I still am providing for my family, even if I'm providing on, pennies on the dollar, but I have prepared. Versus if you just go, okay, this is happening and I don't want to look at it. And there's nothing wrong with this approach of I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to close my eyes and it'll just work itself out. Sometimes it will. And sometimes you'll find yourself, depending on your vibration, you'll get to a place of scarcity. And then you're like, I don't have anything. And I want to blame this, that, and the other. Blaming doesn't help you when when there's no food on the table. That's not going to help you.
And that's where I feel like our communities haven't really done justice to the community members, and that's where we have all of these modern conveniences, and we have a lot of privilege and a lot of really amazing blessings of technology, ways to create, and that's where I think we have an economic literacy gap more so than we have a financial literacy gap. Everybody knows the commodity tools that are out there. There's a checking account, there's a digital banking app, there's, even crypto apps now that there's all of these tools, great to move your money from point A to point B. How do you feel about the money when it's moving? How do you feel about being confident to be able to create income for yourself from the gifts that you have and the knowledge that you have and the time that you've already spent and invested? And so our words become really powerful,
Mhm.
but the energy that I was feeling when you were describing that scarcity is constriction. So we
Mhm.
get all kind of constricted and that's a trauma response. The trauma response is, for those of you listening that don't really understand what it means to be trauma informed, you're in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn method. And you're doing things with your nervous system is responding to the experience that you're having. And we're having experiences with money. We can't deny that.
Yeah.
There's pleasant experiences and then there's not so pleasant experiences. So I love that you just kind of took us there, Grace, because I don't think we I don't think we pause to really reflect on that very often.
Yeah. No, thank you for observing that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just think it's a fascinating um arena to dive into of your relationship with money and your thought process behind it and the whole view of what
Yeah.
it looks like and how does it relate to you on a day-to-day basis. And by getting out of the I don't want to look at it mode of operation and jumping into like, let's just get curious.
Yeah.
And then seeing things allows you to then make some actual choices about it and puts you more in the driver's seat than not. Because as you start to delve into your relationship with money, as well as what you're doing, what you're not doing, um, if you can pause the judgment, because it's easy to judge ourselves. It's easy to say, "Oh, I'm just bad with money," and like if I did, but if I had, and you'll easily jump into a person can easily jump into a story of like, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, or I wish, and do the comparison thing, and you can go all over the place with your ego in terms of judgment about where you currently are. It is a deeper practice to just let go of all of those stories and actually love yourself in spite of those stories, in spite of that ego that's trying to protect you from changing or looking at the story or looking at the reality of what it is. Because once you understand your reality of where you're at, you can then make choices to change it. And you can be a little more active in how you not only vibrate within yourself and how much you love yourself, into allowing yourself to have more. Because really, that's what it comes down to. If you want to create abundance in your life, it's not wishing for it, it's allowing it to come to you. It's allowing yourself to receive that abundance. And it seems counterintuitive, but when you start to actually practice it, you'll see very quickly through some of the, like I have different courses that teach you how to like start um, implementing it in your life.
Is part of what you're talking about, Grace, when you say not allowing it or not allowing oneself to receive, does that have to do with money shame? Can you take us through your perspective on money shame? Because I feel like there's this identity that people won't allow, and it's what's behind that wall. And is it shame? Is it doubt in oneself? Is it like, what have you found as you've been working with your clients to get them financially unstuck or to work past this kind of energetic flow of money, to kind of blend that with their energy and their belief system? Where does money shame actually come up?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that, Connie. Yeah, the that's incredible. Yeah, it is working through the shame, and where does that shame come from? Again, a lot of it roots with what I've found over the years. That it really roots with your the first initial, like first initial 2 or 3 times as a young person, your what you see happen or what's happening around you. Like, for example, it might not directly happen to you, but it happened to your mom or dad or your family in general, where somebody might have stolen from you, and therefore you have a distrust of people around relationship with money because they're going to steal from you. And that carries forward and will look like different things. Or that one parent might have been, uh, y- they might not have been the best parent. Just say, we'll say that they weren't the best parent, and they took all the money and they spent it on things that really didn't provide for the family, but gave that person comfort, and therefore you went without. Meaning you might have gone without dinner, you might have gone out without food and had to figure out how to, like, survive on your own. Uh, and therefore, as you get older, you will inevitably reenact that of, like, maybe getting with a spouse or a partner or, in a relationship, an actual physical relationship with somebody else that takes from you. You know, they'll go after the money in your bank account, and um they don't do it maliciously, but you realize, like, the money that comes in that you've manifested coming in is now being leaked out to other people, and it again comes back down to that core situation when that family member took advantage of your the money that was there, the limitation that was there. So it's it is like doing a little bit of detective work in how you came up with your beliefs around money and those experiences, because those experiences will start happening again and again and again. Because once it's like one time that it's happened, that trauma hits you one time, right? It's locked into your cells until you release it. And there's different modalities to help you release that. But if you don't even know that it's stuck in your actual physical cells, um, you won't you won't know why this thing is keeps coming back and happening over and over and over again. Um, there are traumas that happen to children that will repeat itself, and it's not the child's fault that this thing happened, but it's a thing that happened, and then as they get into preteen and on forward, it will happen again and again and again, and they will even create situations where they put themselves in a situation where the trauma happens again. Um, and they're like, "Well, I didn't put myself in that situation," but it's like, "No, but your body is calling for that trauma to happen again until you're actually able to heal and clear it, because each time it keeps calling for you to come forward and heal yourself and help heal that trauma, and so even though the players in the situation, in that storyline, will be different, it will be the same trauma repeating itself over and over again, and you can see the lineage when you start to, like, really delve into it. So that's some of the work that, like, in my, course 4M, kinda helps people start to, like, look at that history. There's a special course that I, recently did, a master class called Abundance Awakening, where we actually look at that and go through a couple of different techniques and helping to clear it out of your system once we've identified what it is, and then walk it through, and then once you identify it, you clear it, then you get to call in and replace it with the thing that you want and cement that into reality, and then you get to practice keep calling that in as a technique, and that's a great way to just start start
Mhm.
peeling the onion,
Right.
and the more you peel it, the more you'll, like, go, "Oh, okay, I can see how this relates to this," and it expands from there.
Yeah, and it's so important, and I don't think our listeners, some of them probably don't um, give enough credit to this process of unpacking. And what you're talking about, this onion, we are layers of an onion. We have layers and layers of experiences that all pile up. inside of our memory banks, and our bodies are connected to our nervous system. So I love that you brought that up because I don't think there's been enough understanding, certainly in communities that carry a lot of trauma, carry a lot of external environmental experiences that impact them, and they don't have the coping mechanisms and the tools. And we see that in our nonprofit communities. We see that in, some of our lower income communities. And there's a lot of work that some really amazing people that I work with are doing because I have a nonprofit as well. And, connecting these concepts and working them together in a more holistic model is what I call post traumatic growth. And
Uh,
post traumatic growth means you've been through something adverse. We know that through the trauma work that the body has kept score. There's a whole book on that. The body keeps score. And so we have to start connecting and stitching these concepts together to get to the place where people are challenged with their money systems. The money system can move money 24/7, 365. Every second matters now. And we can do that in our sleep because the machines do it, but we're still human beings and we still have to understand how all of these concepts that you're talking about, Grace, fit together. So I love when I am able to connect with individuals like you that are heart-centered human beings that are kind of doing this blend between technology that moves our money, the systems that hold our money, and the human being part of it with being with our money and relating to our money. I'm really glad that you brought that up because um, I think about all of the number of clients that struggle. And I would love for you to share with us and the audience, the listeners, what's a transformation story that really stands out for you for one of your clients that really just kind of aligns with where people are right now with inflation, all of the external circumstances. Like, is there something that you would like to share as far as a client that really just became a transformation story for you?
um, everybody's at a different place, but uh, one of the nuts and bolts was there was a particular client that was in security guard industry, um, and private eye industry. And when he called me, uh, he was in a panic because at the time, and it's funny because he thought he was just hiring an accounting department because his bookkeeper at the time was leaving, and there was lots of things to be fixed. And so I went in and looked at what was going on. And, he was talking about how he was having such arduous times with his money flow. And he hadn't looked at the numbers. He hadn't had anybody actually take him through the process of actually looking at the numbers and seeing what they actually were. And this is, somebody's business that was making easily $4 to $5 million a year. So we're not talking like little chunk change. We're talking like we're in the big numbers. And, he was doing great at getting the clients in, but then he himself was not able to receive the money and not looking at the money and just thinking, well, it'll get taken care of in the background. And so we worked together um, for a year. And within the first 3 months, we took his accounts receivable from $750,000 down to like 200,000. So
Which is
immediately in three months, he had a cash flow that he had never had before and was able to like experience what it is when the company is running on a cycle that makes sense, and then what you have to do in relationship with the
right,
money and with what you're doing and how you're acting with calling it into yourself. And it's not just, it is done on a psychological level, but it's also done on nuts and bolts, right?
right,
I can't
right,
just go and pray it or meditate it into being. Then I actually need to take steps. So both are true. Like if I like going back to our gardening analogy, if I want my vegetable garden to grow, I can meditate all I want to. I can bring my sound bowls out to my garden and play my sound bowls and do all the vibration things that I need to do to prepare the soil. But at the end of the day, I still need to get my hands dirty and plant the seeds, water the seeds, nurture the seeds, and be conscious and in relationship with the seeds in order for it to grow and produce. And it's the same thing with your business, with your money. You still there two things are needed simultaneously. If I just went out and prepared the soil and went out and just put the seeds in without being conscious about it, I might not have been curious enough to go learn about the money learn about oh, soil temperature matters. If I went and planted things today, well, the soil here in Virginia is too cold for some of the things that I want to plant. So they wouldn't grow. And I would spend all that time and energy and money sowing something that wasn't going to grow because the environment wasn't right. And
Right.
that's the same thing as slowing down enough to be curious of what's going to work, what's not going to work.
And I think there's so much that comes up when you say, the nuts and bolts, because I feel like there's a lot of technology that business owners are using. Accounting software is one. I see all kinds of different tools that are out there. And people in their businesses kind of assign it to a role, to a person, and they never look back. It's kind of like this set it and forget it. And I love that you brought up, like, he hadn't looked at the numbers, may have not looked at the technology. He may have not looked at the automations behind that technology and what types of alerts and notifications, because our tech can do all kinds of things now, what kind of alerts and notifications matter to you so that you can bring your awareness, your consciousness, and your focus back to that part of your business versus other things that demand, your time. And it's sharing that time equally, the same as we would in a family. We'd give a little bit of attention to our kid, our wife, or our son, or, whoever's in the family. We all need to spread that attention and focus to the ones that kind of matter, that keep it running. And you're talking about like an economy inside of a little business with the
Mhm.
team, with the technology and the business owner. So it's a really good way to look at it from that gardening metaphor. I really love that because you need a whole crop, right, to fix a meal. You need all these ingredients.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. The business does not prosper to those multi-million dollar marks without a team.
yeah. Or at least multiple hats for the same person until they scale to a certain level. And I see that a lot with solopreneurs or, little micro entrepreneurs where, like, even myself at times where I'm going, do I have to have all of this tech? And all of the tech requires all of different settings. And now the settings are supposed to talk to one another. And we've
Right.
got AI coming in. So, the tooling behind the business that actually is touching the money is still going to need our attention, still going to need our focus and our, intellectual curiosity about how all that's going to work together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us what's next for you. Where are you going and what would you like to do as far as like, growing and scaling your business or serving your customers and clients? What really, lights you up inside as far as your ability to serve and unlock the flow of value for your clients?
Um, that's a great question. Yes, I am about right now just getting the word out and reaching as many listeners as I can about the different tools and courses that I've created to help bridge an understanding of the financial literacy and practical steps that you can put into place today, not just with the nuts and bolts, but also understanding what's going on in the subconscious so that you can make it conscious. Because once you make subconscious conscious, then you actually have the power to make changes in how you're being with money specifically. And I mean, you can obviously take that same teaching and put it into your relationship with everybody else in the world too. It's multidimensional in its education, but I'm using money as a way to dive into understanding from one point of view. So you can take the same teaching and apply it to all different kinds of places in your life if that's what you choose to do. But the reason we're jumping in as money is because we all have to touch money. It's all related. It's a bridge to understanding not only yourself and giving you the opportunity to understand yourself, but also to raise the your abundance level. Because if we had a more abundant world with the people that are loving and heart-centered, will we not create a better planet Earth
We
experience?
We absolutely would, and I believe that there are people out in communities that feel unseen and unheard and looked over, like, I want money too to come to me. I would love to be able to create and produce and participate, but no one is teaching me, and I don't know where to go get that information. So access and opportunity are not the same in that case. But I do love that we talked about at the beginning the resourcefulness of one client in the face of adversity, because I believe we can all make those choices. We just need
Mhm.
to start somewhere. So it sounds like incredible work that you're doing. I would be happy to collaborate and figure out ways to support you and the mission that you're doing, because I think we need more people like you talking about money in a way that isn't so shameful, not so blameful, and invites people to the table to come and really have a healthier relationship with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Connie. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on the show. So, all right, guys. So, we will have in the show notes opportunities for you to kind of take a look at everything that Grace has created. I think she has a special offer for you guys too today, and so let's look at ways that we can improve the relationship with money. And Grace, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Unlocking Commerce and Business. If this conversation resonated, here's what you can do. Subscribe for weekly conversations with survivors, innovators, and change makers, building regenerative alternatives to extractive commerce. Share this episode with collaborators, partners, funders, and change makers in your network. The people ready for restorative commerce need to hear these voices. Drop a comment below. Tell us what patterns you're recognizing or what solutions you're building. We read every one. Commerce is everywhere, and healing extraction patterns inside our communities creates regenerative commerce outside. Like a lighthouse, we're here, exploring and cutting through fog, pointing toward what works. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Until next time, explore courageously, build sovereignly. You are the source and store of value. This is Connie Davis signing off. Thank you for being here.